let's see here. Where did my other, there we go. Now I got to swap screens here real quick. All right. So this is the overall site master plan that has been updated based on our public comment and input. So not anything that was a radical change, but we showed some prairie restoration and included the existing hiking trail that's over here on the Boys and Girls Club. But really tonight, what I'm going to do is kind of take you, for lack of a better way to describe it, kind of clockwise around the park, starting at the gatehouse area, and just start to put some numbers and cost estimating. Now, I'm going to give you the big old caveat that we are in an extremely strange time of pricing with lots of issues with, getting lumber, and prices have escalated, and some of that will come down over time, hopefully once the worst of COVID is over. But in the meantime, what I wanted to do is just kind of start getting you thinking. But the first thing I wanted to do is, one of the things that the task force and I have discussed was just an architectural aesthetic for future park buildings. And you'll see the existing shelter house there on your left that has what's called an ashlar limestone pattern. So that element of matching the roof pitch, of trying to pull in that base stone, using the fiber cement boarding, and then just trying to create a little bit of interest from a wood truss in different ways that we could incorporate that, whether it might be the gatehouse or the restroom building in the future, another potential shelter house, whatever the case may be. So that was a really clean look, but it was something that was simplified, park-like, but started to tie all the buildings together within the park over a period of time as you might go forth. And that includes even something as small as the gatehouse, which is where we're going to head next, which is the north end of the park. And just to remember that north is flipped on your screen, so it'll always be to the right, just in order to get everything on. So last year, Adam worked on a rough floor plan for the gatehouse, which you see below. So what we did was we just started to look at what those costs might be in today's dollars, a little bit of extra site work, concrete pad, those kinds of things. But again, just starting to put numbers. So when you see widen and pave entrance, that's the lanes on either side of the gatehouse. What I would add in a caveat is, anytime you're doing any kind of asphalt paving or stone work, the more you can, if you're not doing the work in-house, but you're doing that work with a general contractor, quantity and pricing comes down in unit pricing, the more work there is for them. So in this particular case, I outlined the area right around the gatehouse, but it might be that we want to do that drive work maybe with the boat launch when you were doing all of that together. But just to start getting you thinking and how these different components start to put together in pricing. And I know Adam and I discussed that the gatehouse and the task force kind of verified that the gatehouse is a pretty high priority. So we wanted to kind of get a handle on what that might cost. Then as we go just working our way, and I'm going to turn on a little red laser pointer here, but as we just kind of work our way around the maintenance building and adding on to that, and you see a potential example of obviously a pole barn, but a pole barn structure of about 24 by 80 is about a $60,000 to $80,000 adventure. Again, that is today's dollars, just something to give you a reference point. Moving over to the boat launch area, this area, as we've shown, would become more formalized and be paved. We'd widen out this road and then provide some extra temporary boat staging area for when you may have pulled your boat out of the water. But then we would also, and Adam told me the staff could do this in-house, would slide the boat slip around to the side there, but then we would actually almost double the width. And that would be a concrete surface that would hold up better with the water and the waves, et cetera, from a maintenance perspective. But we'd almost double that in width to allow a little more ease of accessibility for boats in and out. So you just start to see those numbers starting to play out down here. And I just tried to describe what those are. Then as you kind of just continue to move around, you see a pathway there that could be a stone trail, that could be just a footpath. But then we kind of demarcated an area for a park office, maybe 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. That was one of the hardest numbers to come up with, because right now it's just housing prices and building supplies are just through the roof. In a typical scenario, that's usually probably 160 to 175,000, depending on the complexity of the building and how defined and what kind of finishes you would have. But it just starts to give you a feel and a marker for what that is. And then there would be some site work involved in that. The existing park office, just for a little bit of reference, is this small little square right here, and we'd be shifting that over. As we work our way further into the site, I called it the east end, but more over into the park proper area. So we've talked a little bit about renovating the existing shelter. Some of that work would be in-house work that could start as early as this winter, removing some of the shutters and the plywood on the shelter, and just generally trying to open up the building and make it more of an open air shelter. Some of the work right around the volleyball court would be the same type, could be done in-house. Might need some new sand and some more edging and that kind of thing to more formally define it. And then even in the future, maybe opening up some of the window areas within the shelter, potentially making those more of an open doorway to just continue to open up and lighten up the existing shelter. You've got the gaming area that's up here at the northern end. Those were things like horseshoes, shuffleboard, potentially it could be a bocce ball court, but that you could work with your individual public to see kind of specifically when you're ready to do that kind of work, what that might be. The shade kites are the individual, they're like a 15 by 15 shade sail. They run by the time you put concrete with them, and roughly about $9,500 by the time you put concrete footers and the shade sail portion on it itself. So I showed those various different shade structures. And then as you work your way down, there is a children's play equipment. Play equipment can run anywhere, depending on how big your unit is, from 200,000 on up. You've got a couple of shade structures again, and obviously your playground surfacing. Poured in place is sometimes almost half the cost of your actual play structure. So I would anticipate that probably be more of the wood 5-bar type facility that would be easier for the guys to handle. The poured in place is great, but it's really expensive. One of the areas I didn't talk about was we talked about expanding and really creating a nice concrete patio area off the existing shelter, just to allow a different place for people to congregate, maybe a couple picnic benches. And then we've got the stone walking path that comes around here and ties around the perimeter there, and then eventually would tie into this new accessible pathway, which would also lead to those rental shade structures that we'd mentioned. And then I called it general site work, and that would be basically paving the existing parking area and expanding it. You could do it just in stone, or eventually you could asphalt. I went ahead for just the purposes of pricing to give you a rough idea what that might cost. Asphalt prices have escalated in part hugely because of all the NDOT work that's going on right now throughout the state, and you're all familiar with that with State Road 37. And then you've got the beach area expansion. Again, some of that Adam and his crew could do, but expanding the beach, those extra 3 shade structures, and this is actually a paved, I would anticipate that would probably be concrete, just because of the aspect of trying to get an asphalt piece of equipment in and out of there for a longevity perspective. We're going to work our way down to the restroom building and the boat slips and the ramp area. And because this area was one that really was going to change what it looked like, I thought maybe a perspective sketch might help everybody in the public get a better understanding maybe of what was being proposed. So in the background over here, you can see one of the shade kites that would be up closer to the playground. We suggested the restroom building here in the background, and you would be coming down the hill. So you can see a couple people there as you kind of walk down the hill. Eventually, about right in here, you would take off and head towards the beach. And then you would turn the corner in the, because that area is so steep, and to make it accessible, you had to make it really long to flatten out the grade so that we can make it accessible for wheelchairs. you would come down behind the observation deck so that you could get on the observation deck. We moved the entrance to that because as I got to looking at the kind of the topo, this could become a really towering structure and added expense to make the piers higher. But this is an observation deck. You could fish from it. People could sit, just enjoy a view of the water. And then eventually you can make your way down over here to a gangway that would make its way down and across over to the boat slips. If you were able-bodied and wanted a quick direct route to the restrooms, there was a set of stairs that was included that would go up the hillside to the back side of the restroom building. The restroom building itself, we looked at putting together, in particular, this is kind of a design build. They would cringe if I said the word prefabricated, but to a certain degree it is. But 6 unisex kind of bathroom rooms with 3 on one side, 3 on the other. They're all unisex and they all have doors to the outside. Storage on one end, and then a little bit of a 6-foot, 8-foot porch overhang with the roof, just to allow somebody, if they were meeting somebody or to take, if it started raining unexpectedly, allow a user just to stand there and sheltered until they could get back to their boat or back to the parking lot. The pathway, the ramp down, I indicated in concrete, in part just because of the stability, the longevity, and the long-term maintenance. We broke out the deck, assuming that that would be probably a synthetic decking material, again, for longevity and maintenance. The stairs to the restroom, again, the same thing. The gangway, the ramp, and the boat slips. This area would require some additional site work and grading just because of all the different aspects of that hillside. And then that trail connection, that there was a trail connection shown that goes back beyond and over to the parking lot off back over to the west. So that would just be a stone connection. But again, just trying to tie it all together from that different perspective. This area would be the point. The point really, we didn't suggest too many changes, but we added a couple more shade structures, some being more the shade kites like this photo here demonstrates, and then potentially some larger gathering shelters. And again, trying to just incorporate that aesthetic that we talked about, just tying all the different buildings together. Obviously the drive areas, we weren't suggesting paving there, but more of a just adding some stone and better stabilizing the existing drives that are there today. And then as we kind of wander our way back around towards the gatehouse, you can start to see some of the prairie restoration areas. This drive area here would be paved up and through this area so that you keep the main drive ready to go. The boat parking area is obviously this section here. Your car parking is over in here. And we did show a future potential rental building spot if somewhere down the line you might have a vendor or someone that would want to partner with you. And then just some hiking trails to connect back into the existing trails that are over on the Boys and Girls Club. So that is a kind of a high level view, but it really starts to put some costs with it together just to help inform you as the board and the task force, and just really trying to understand what those things might cost, and then obviously allow you to start to think about a game plan based on what your priorities might be. So I'd be happy to take any questions or flip back to any slides if anyone's got a specific question.
Adam, will we have a copy of this PowerPoint? I was trying to jot costs down as quickly as I could, but
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can share that. Absolutely.
Okay.
I have a PDF for you that I'll send to Adam.
Okay.
Thank you. Where are my park gurus?